All right. What is going on, everybody? Needs more drums back in City Skylines in our yet to be named city that is more of a small town at the moment. But anyway, today I think we're just going to do another little time lapse build here. I kind of want to just expand the city a little bit more. Maybe these suburbs, kind of bring these up here to the tracks. And yeah, if we have some time, maybe we'll work on upgrading some of the roads, but we'll see what happens, and maybe even developing some of this industry a little bit more over here. I think that'll expand out quite a bit. And yeah, we already built our farms in the last episode, so hopefully we'll have a little bit more money flowing in. Yeah, already making a profit. Awesome. So on that note, let's just go ahead and jump right into the time lapse here and get started with our expansion. All right, so what I wanted to do here was try to make another, like a main road type of connection. We only had that one that was going into the center of the city. That was already the existing road from when the map was first put together. And I don't know why it made a stoplight at that railroad crossing there. I was trying to see if I can get rid of that, but I don't know. It was just maybe a weird glitch with the railway mod and some of these new roads. I kind of noticed that happening in some of my in my other save game when I put a railroad crossing with one of the new roads from the new DLC. The stoplights appeared. So yeah, probably just a glitch. Probably will get fixed. No big deal. Don't really care. You can't see it anyway from here, so whatever. So this spot here, I wanted to kind of clear this out for right now and turn it, this whole area with the cemetery and the this open area here with this old house, kind of turn it into a park. I'd like to envision that old house there was maybe the founder's house, and that's why I call it Founder's Park. Maybe the founder of the city had this old house, and so since then it's fallen into kind of a state of disrepair and is more of a monument nonetheless. But still, it'd be cool to kind of pay a tribute to the founder of the city and have a little historical site right in the city center. So now this was just trying to figure out a way to kind of fill the space here. I figured this would be a good spot for some more residential development. And again, thinking about how some of these connections could have possibly been there in the past and are no longer there now. So not every single road needs to cross the train tracks, and that's why you'll see right there in the middle that I try to keep some sort of dead end streets whenever I build an area like this that's by the train tracks, because there's not ever railroad crossings or roads crossing over train tracks like every single block. It's usually only a couple of main roads and maybe a couple side streets. But and the reason I have some of the side streets even connecting over the tracks is so that later, when we upgrade some of these roads as the city grows, then those roads will probably turn into main roads or some sort of a more they won't just stay like a suburban street. There'll be some sort of more important connection. So this is another good way to detail your cities in a very functional way, is dragging out some power lines. And well, these might not stay as the city grows, and power lines in more dense areas, typically wires are run underground. But since this right now is a not very dense area, we need to get power there somehow. So dragging it alongside the roads is a great way to add a nice realistic touch to your city that is also functional. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm probably going to say this in every single one of my videos, that something I do will kind of complete two things. It'll be functional, and it will be realistic from an aesthetic point of view. And so yeah, I always like to consider things like that when I'm planning out my infrastructure, making sure I have things like power and water, and not just just roads going all over the place, but that everything kind of has a purpose. And when I'm expanding things like this, sometimes it's a little tough to figure out exactly where sort of kind of breaking up the grid and where sort of different neighborhoods are going to be. So this is why I kind of like to work in kind of lay out my main roads and my main connections, and then sort of fill in the spaces, and that can lead to sometimes, as in the case with this neighborhood right now, this is a very standard a pretty straightforward grid format or layout. But as we get kind of in maybe some later videos, as we expand a little bit further, sort of outside where the city center would be, then these street designs can be a little bit more random and sort of follow the landscape a little bit more. And this map is nice too because it lends us, with the mountains, it lends us some nice terrain. Oh, our farming area got upgraded, and that is good because now we can add a flour mill later on and get some more money. But yeah, it is nice to have some variations in the landscape. And so this map with some different hills and some mountains and rivers and a nice coastline, we can really use those to our advantage and avoid just building this super flat plain grid. We can actually go through and create some interestingly designed neighborhoods and street layouts. So I noticed my commercial demand was a little bit high, so just trying to fulfill some of this demand, I created sort of a town square in our new neighborhood over there, so that'll kind of be its own little thing. And then I like to do that because around kind of where I live, I don't live in a huge city, so some of the downtown areas, quote unquote, those are more of just kind of like little squares or little commercial centers. They're not super huge shopping strips that are a mile long, like in Chicago, where it's just stores and commercial for miles and miles. But something a little more of a smaller scale. Yeah, I was doing some work here, trying to, I don't like to terraform a ton, but I do think that there is a nice balance between, if your city doesn't need to be built on a freaking cliff. So, in areas like this where the terrain is just a little bit too steep, I kind of like to smooth it out. Yeah, I can't talk. Smooth it out a little bit. And we have reached the busy town milestone, so that's nice. But anyway, yeah, smoothing out the terrain a little bit, kind of helps. As the city grows, especially in industry typically wouldn't be built on any kind of hillsides or anything, since some of these places are bigger industrial complexes. I kind of like to keep these areas a little bit flatter than the rest of my city, as it's a little more important to do that, because when you build these big factories and these big complexes, you need room to park, trailers and where trucks can drive through them and everything. And especially some of the industry's DLC factories they have a pretty big footprint. And so I'm trying to, later in the game, when we grow our various industries, I want to kind of leave room for those, and so we can start replacing some of these generic industry buildings with some of the much more unique ones in the unique factories and such. And I think some of those are awesome. I'm super excited to do that because in some of my cities I've gotten to the point where I've been able to put down a few of the factories, but never to the point where I put down all of them. And I'd like to make that a goal in this city, is to put down all of the unique factories and have all 4 of the main industries from the industries DLC all developed in the city. So even though it's an industrial zone, there's still always room for some trees. And since this was kind of a steeper hillside, I figured this land wouldn't really be developed it wouldn't be a great place to put some industrial zone. So I just kind of left some green space there, and then across the street from that, where our landfill is, I plan to kind of turn that whole thing into a kind of a landfill / waste complex. So I'm just leaving that space pretty open for now, and we'll come back to that later. Yeah, so we finally have access to this bakery, and I couldn't think of a good place to put that down right now. I kind of want to put that maybe closer to our farmland a little bit later, but right now I couldn't really find a good place to fit it in our industry, so I figured we'll come back to that. And I also realized that we didn't put down a flour mill yet, so we wouldn't be able to, use that anyway. And I don't know what was going on with this road here. It was just being kind of whack, so sorry while I fix this and can't seem to get it fixed. Just sometimes these nodes are just super weird, and the connections, the game will make a weird connection or something, so just kind of deleting it and rebuilding it from scratch seemed to, yeah, see, like right there, just kind of needing to rebuild this a little bit. So I just said, I'll just drag that, move it to make that node a little bit better, and it fixed the problem. So since this park is probably going to be a little bit of a feature in this part of the city, I decided to go ahead and make some of the roads already a little bit more, put some higher capacity roads down. Sorry. And then in addition, I wanted to add this high school complex in there. So this was kind of, one of those weird spaces that I didn't really know what to do with. And I said, you know what, the city needs a high school, and this is a good place to put it because, it's right down by the park, by that big park. So there will probably already be some better infrastructure here. It's right off of this main road that will probably upgrade later to be even more of a main road. And this is a nice little area where we could put down some. I always like to make little complexes when I make high schools because high schools usually take up quite a big footprint. And since I do have a lot of assets, and but I don't really want to get carried away with too many, so I didn't download any sort of American style football fields or anything like that. But you can kind of create a nice realistic look just by putting down some parking lots, some footpaths, and definitely some basketball courts and tennis courts. Just kind of making some, like I said, turning it into a complex and making it have a bigger footprint rather than just plopping a high school down in a corner and calling it a day. This kind of gives that realistic sense of this is a kind of a important building in our city. And like I've said before, trees and fences are awesome in helping, just that little bit of detail that really separates, some different areas and just kind of makes your neighborhoods come to life. And yeah, just never be afraid to, put down a couple trees and a couple fences if you don't want to go overboard with the detail. And going back to our budget, always got to fix that up. Very important. Noticed that my farmland was, complaining over there about some plumbing issues. So we'll hopefully get that fixed, and that they will stop yelling at me about it. Yeah, this was kind of a tough area to work with because of the gradient. It looked like when they put the tracks in the map design, it kind of sloped the land down from that, and so I tried to, instead of making that super steep hill kind of road connection, go over that steep hill and go across the tracks, I decided to remove that connection and kind of bring all these down and sort of keep the tracks at like an elevated, I don't know what you would call that, the word, I can't think of the word right now, but I noticed that, in Chicago, especially when I'm on the train around Chicago, that half the time I'll be kind of, if I'm going through a neighborhood, I'll be elevated up over the neighborhood on sort of a hill like that. So the tracks, that's a very common feature when you're going through more of a less dense area. And so now I wanted to head back to the farm area since we leveled up and put down our flour mill so we can start, making even a little bit more money in a different product. And again, something that I always like to do is always have a storage area for whatever resource we're producing. So in this case, we're producing some flour. I wanted to have a place to store it, and then that avoids us being able, that helps us being able to use it in further production, such as when we put down our bakery. Otherwise, I believe that it will just be exported right away. And, while exporting is good and it makes us money, further refining those products into refining those products into more refined products, I guess. That's always good for the city, and it's always good for our bank account as well. So those specialized finished goods, we're going to want to do what we can to produce those later down the road. Going back to our farm episode, I love these assets from Padelmo. These things are awesome. So using, just these wheat fields to kind of fill in this this awkward space here by the flour mill. I figured since we're in a farmland, a little field is always never hurts. So and then you can use these to create some to fill in any kind of weird gaps in your farming area. So these things are awesome, and I would highly recommend that you go grab them from the workshop if you're looking for some cool ways to keep your farming areas interesting and not be confined to just the big super square grids. Those definitely help. And I realized in my last video I was talking about a place to store our animal products, and I realized that I didn't have that yet, so now we have that. And this is kind of a weird spot too, because I didn't really like the way this hill was. It was sort of a little too steep. I probably should have built this, made like another road perpendicular to that dirt road and fixed it. But maybe I'll do that later. But for now, this is good enough, and it definitely gets the job done. And so now we have some nice storage for all of our farming products, flour, animal products, and just regular crops. So going back to the city, or the city center, I should say, this is a area that I was kind of struggling to figure out what to do with. And, given the shape of that main road, there's not really a good place to put a grid. And, it's not a super big space either. And then I wanted to get rid of that zone and kind of use that new main road that we made at the beginning and sort of start to make this into make a new district that as with that main road being a separator between neighborhoods. So right now we kind of have the first neighborhood that we built with some older buildings, and then now I kind of want to I think I end up, well, let's see what I end up doing here. I don't remember. But I think I end up actually just making it the same as what is currently the west suburbs in terms of the style. But it looks like, because I use those boomer homes, and we'll come back to that later, I guess, when we actually build that. But just laying the groundwork, and okay, cool. We're gonna do some older buildings there as well. Nice. All right. Yeah, I like those. The college buildings, or the university pack by I think it's King Leno did that one, I want to say. But that one has some nice sort of older looking buildings where if you're you're trying to build a low density start to a city or like an older town, those buildings some of them kind of look a little bit more run down, and so it gives you that sort of inner city kind of style, and I like that a lot when I'm starting out with any city. I always like to kind of use some older buildings for the start, and then in some of the wealthier areas that get developed later on, that's when I'll kind of go to some of the more nice and well-developed homes. But in this case, though, I did like the mid-century modern pack. Those, I know by where I live, there's some older neighborhoods that have that mid-century modern style, and those buildings are super cool, and I love those neighborhoods. Usually they're have a lot of like big old trees that have been around for a while, and so that everybody has these kind of cool secluded wooded lots, and you could tell like the sidewalks and the streets are all kind of older, and the house and the bricks on the houses are all like really old, but it's just a cool sort of style, and yeah, I like those spots. But yeah, this is it's kind of putting down some random roads, and this is one of those suburbs that might have a little bit more of an interesting shape because there's really not a great grid to follow here. But what I did want to do is move these power lines because they wouldn't be going right through the middle of our city, so got rid of those because we don't need them anymore. And I had that street kind of follow the river because I want to you know, use the landscape to my advantage, like I was talking about earlier. And I didn't have that road go all the way down to the coast because I want to leave that later for some maybe a bike path that can go along the coast. And I think that the coast of that river, I mean the riverside, and I think that's always a cool thing to put, you know, along a river, like maybe some pedestrian friendly roads or pathways or some bike paths are always fantastic to work with. But yeah, right now we're just, you know, in another neighborhood over here, literally, because I haven't figured out a name for it yet. And yeah, like I said, I think in my first video, any naming suggestions for anything, put them down below. The city still needs a name. I have no idea what I want to call it yet. The districts, all the different neighborhoods still need a name. I have no idea what I want to call any of these. And even if you think of like a little style or a theme for some names, like I said, I sometimes like to keep my names just, you know, in a certain theme to kind of be humorous, or, you know, something that I enjoy, like, you know, music. I'll name it after, you know, band members or something. But yeah, I do that a lot, and, you know, it just kind of gives me some ideas to keep my areas diverse and whatnot. But yeah, just, you know, doing some more expansion here. As you saw, I upgraded that road to some nice tree line streets there, and those can handle a little bit more traffic. And the trees are, you know, they get rid of some noise pollution and they make people happy. So I love to use those tree line roads whenever I can. And then I realized that everybody's complaining about our lack of power, and I realized that our budget for power is, you know, at 100%. So unless I want to increase the budget further, I think, you know, the best thing to do now is just kind of build a power plant. And we had no money, so I took out a loan. And, you know, this is one thing that I don't like about this game is the design of the power plants. I think that they look really, like, oddly futuristic, sort of like something that you'd see in, like, Mars or something. So I really don't like to use the vanilla power plants, but I don't know. I figured I didn't really want to go to the workshop and download another one just yet. So for now, you know, we'll use the vanilla ones, and I have some tricks maybe later that we could do to make them look a little bit better, a little bit more realistic. That involves maybe, you know, overlapping some industry buildings with them, and that way we can make them kind of blend in a little bit better. So we'll get to that later, but for now, just wanted to get that done. All right, guys, that is about it for the time lapse. We did quite a bit, I would say. We finished up, you know, this whole northern area here, got another little expansion going on over here, and then added a new power plant, which was much needed. Cost a bit of money, but that'll serve us well for the future. And even expanded our farming area a little bit by adding, you know, a flour mill and a couple warehouses for our products. So hopefully that will, you know, lay some groundwork for future expansion. And until next time, have a good week, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.